right.
And they're huge.
We're back. 2 months later.
I heard they checking for me, no one checking on me, so I had to go run up a check.
And we're back.
Sorry we're so delayed on this project. I apparently have a bipolar disorder thing that they call it, and so I had to get leveled out on my meds before I could show myself to the world again. So it's my bad.
It's not your bad. It's completely fine.
I know, it's just really funny because we were like, let's do it 4 weeks in a row and then have the last, like, it's like the last momentum we were like going to build.
We all had stuff. We all had things that we were busy with. So that's fine.
Yeah.
Also, I think we got excited. It's an exciting project.
Yeah. Yes.
And
so welcome back to the TERFening.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Last time you were here, we were
when we last left
ripping apart Phil Illy because I was in a bad mood. That was a man-hating episode. I thought it was really funny though, so I kept most of the shit in there.
All right,
Sometimes
I think he's about to talk about. Yep. And then
especially when me and Bunny get together.
Say what?
I said when me and Bunny get together too. It's like a man-hating fest.
Oh yeah, that's just my natural.
Me too. I think that's why.
Disposition.
Hateful little person.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go.
I did want to clarify something. Are we recording? Yeah. I remember in our last video, I don't know if you kept it in, Katelyn, but we were wondering why they were saying ideology, remember? And
I did keep it in, and I couldn't remember what the word was you said. I was going to make a note of it, and then I said, fuck it.
Yeah, to clarify, they're saying etiology. I don't know why they're saying it so strange. Etiology, which is like the cause of something. So that's the word they were saying that we were confused about. It makes a little bit more sense. That's all.
Thank you for that, because I couldn't remember what you said.
I like to use the term autosexual orientation because it doesn't presuppose any ideological theory of how these orientations came about. They clearly exist, regardless of what the final explanation for their existence ends up being. And I'm not good at the self-promotion stuff. I haven't even named the book that I wrote yet.
Self-promote? What's your SoundCloud?
So I wrote a book called Autosexual, Attracted to Being the Other Sex. And it's about the most common kind of transgenderism in both sexes. I think that female autoandrophilia and male autogynephilia are the most common types of transgenderism in each sex. And the demographic data from large transgender surveys seems to back this up. The vast majority of trans people are non-homosexual with respect to their birth sex, which means by process of elimination, they are not the homosexual ideology, which means they're the other one of the two known types.
Ideology is he's still meaning ideology, right?
I don't know how to like.
It sounds like it. I don't understand how he's saying it like that. It's so weird.
I don't know.
I think there's something of note. I just heard him say something. I don't know if anybody else caught it or maybe I misheard. Did he say autogynephilia is the most common type of transgenderism for both sexes?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think he did say both sexes. Yeah, good catch.
And autoandrophilia. Yeah.
Is that true for? I don't think that's I think that's true for men, but not for women.
No.
Definitely true for men. Can't say that for women.
That's a hard cope on his part, if he really believes that. Because I've never, and I'm like pretty well versed in. Like I've never met a woman that considers herself to be a transgendered man, that is quite coming at it from the same sexual kind of deviant stand.
I do think in porn, just because of Roxy talked about it before, but it's still, you're right, it's very, very seldom.
I mean, I'm not talking about like porn stars, like the really famous
Bug Angel.
Yeah, Bug, thank you. I'm not talking about people acting for porn. I'm talking about people that are trans living their lives. a lot of them do porn to pay for their surgeries, and they fall into that line of work. I could go on a soapbox about that, but I just find that to be so glaringly, obviously untrue. And I feel like,
sorry, I think it might exist in women, a very, very small number, but to say that it's the most
common,
not.
I don't know if it's coming up because the reason I'd asked to pause it before the you reverted back was that he specifies that in the US or in the Western world, but in other countries, like I think where you have the lady boys and things like that, it's more of the homosexual variety. And I think that's a really key point because, you know, or what you see in Iran, it makes it clear that this movement in the West is piggybacking off of a valid movement of that was like rooted in oppression for a lot of trans-identified people before this whole, you know, 2015 year of the trans, like huge push that we've seen in the last few years. In Iran, they're all gay. There's no AGPs. And it sounds like he's saying there's a Thailand that has all the lady boys. They're all gay.
It's different in those cultures. I would say in the West, though, it has been largely AGPs for a long time, even since like the 70s. You know, a lot of people.
So why do you think that is?
Well, it started like
it's like the 1800s.
It started in Europe with the
literally.
I don't know why.
But I mean, I think the point of why is what's interesting. Does it speak to the privilege of the West?
Oh, absolutely.
Or
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
And
they can't be pulling that shit over there. They'll get killed.
Society constructed femininity in the West, right?
Wait, so can you say that again? I couldn't hear the first part what you said.
I think that it also has to do with the way that patriarchy, basically like male dominated, male centered, sort of like capitalistic industrial society constructed femininity, like especially the femininity of the classes that matter, like the leisure class particularly, but also the middle class, is constructed in a very particular way. To be passive and quite like sexualized, but like receptive, but infantilized, but also sort of like, you know, that whole tension of like the mother and the whore, you know, that's a really Westoid thing, actually, you know, like that, and I think that's
like the Madonna and the Mary Magdalena kind of thing.
Yeah. And so I do think that the West, and you're right, Katelyn, probably because of economic factors, just had the ability to construct a kind of femininity that had to be performed with a lot of accoutrements, you know, and like a lot of like useless, you know, fuckability rituals, right? That the rest of the world basically like didn't fucking have time for, or like the material resources for. And so I think that men made that up, like men invented it. Men created it. Men were the first ones to wear high heels and like, you know, robes and petticoats and all of that shit and makeup.
I didn't know that about heels.
Oh yeah.
Is it because they just wanted to be more domineering? And now, because like I always, you know, with women, it's like it does make legs look sexier. I will say, it's just that engaged calf. It's hot. It also just makes us like, you know, it's easier prey too.
Back in the day, like men would wear hot pink garter, like hose, like colonial.
I just didn't know that it was before women wearing them.
Oh yeah,
like it predates women wearing heels. Yes, I didn't know that.
Yes,
I would have assumed it was just like around the same time.
No. Women adopted it like actually a couple hundred years after men. Like it was like I'm sure there's always like a few outliers. You know what I mean? Like really wealthy people that can like have the privilege to dress flamboyantly. But
when did it start being not okay for men to wear heels? Because I mean now they're kind of coming back, but like I don't know,
pretty recently, like 100
historically
years.
Maybe less. Where though? It depends where and like what you consider a heel too.
It was like the Puritans, like the men wore heels. Like if you look at their shoes, not big ones, but you know.
Yeah, but I would consider that like more of a boot.
Right. So what do you
versus like wearing shoes for like the sake of the heel? I don't know.
Have you seen their like penny loafers though? Like it's a low shoe,
little
but
kitten heel going on.
Heel, like still a heel.
Like and it's a heel versus like a lift, like an internal. You know, because men use lifts a lot too, but
they do. To the AGP
my college boyfriend, he had these one shoes that like he said he got them because they like focused on, you know, standing properly or like actively standing because the core, but like I know he got them because I was 5'10" and he was 5'10" as well.
Were they the Skechers shape ups?
No, but they're kind of look like that. They were so
I had a manager, like a GM.
I mean, he was cute. I let him think that was why he was wearing them. I was like, no, it's because they make you 2 inches taller.
Yep.
Yeah.
RGD off to the side. But anyways, yeah. The reason the book's not going to be out for a few months, and the reason I'm talking about it this early is because I ran out of funding, and I need to find either a philanthropist to support me until the royalties start coming in, or I need to have a group of people that each chip in little amounts, because I'm not going to be able to focus on anything else and have a regular job my last year, or do I?
Must be nice. A very privileged person that thinks that he's entitled to just write this book.
By the way,
not work and have people just give him money.
I was curious when it's going to come out, and I just went to his Twitter profile. It says comes out June 13th. So the book's coming out in a few days, actually.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Look at you. She's on it. Oh my goodness. Guys, we have to read this book.
Let's just I'm not paying for it. So.
No, we're fine. I'll find a way to get it for free somehow. If not, I will bite the bullet and pay for this man's next nail polish or whatever the arm warmer.
You hate us.
Don't do it. Not a penny. No.
I just like, it's just so, I cannot believe he said that with a straight face.
It's just you can just, this is how they don't exist in the world that we do, but yeah, they, you know, like
the world. How about the world in general?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? Like this man, and I know I can't. I'm gonna die on the arm warmers hill. I'm very fixated on those, but this man with a straight face, he throws on his fucking baby blue nail polish and ugly ass blue frosted eyeshadow and gets on here with a straight face and says that he needs to secure funding for this book of his because he can't have a regular job. Like, what the fuck? Male privilege. Like, no woman.
The eyeshadow is funny
that
because
would be
like
just-
it's like we did this like I mean I think maybe not, but I mean before, you know, this generation, like the Zennials and all, like the Gen Z and stuff, they somehow grew up knowing how to put makeup on, but like the blue eyeshadow is the first thing that like I ever wore, stealing like my like, and it was like it's the tackiest makeup that you just associate with being young and not knowing how to put it on. That's whenever I see blue eyeshadow, that's all I think of.
I think of when I think men put it on, and this might just be from like my experience being tainted by like working so long in the fetish industry, like as a sex worker, but I feel like they think there's something in like more sexual about the blue, like a little more whorish. It's a little more like scandalous, so that's why they choose it. That's why they choose red lipstick and blue eyes, that very like cheap hooker at a seedy motel look. And at least that's from what they've expressed to me through words and just observation. But
that makes
that's
sense.
the vibe I get.
Yeah, like they're not doing contour and like the no makeup look and like just subtly enhancing some features. That, like,
I don't care if men wear makeup, and I love how people love to put that on like gender critical feminists, like we like lose sleep over men wearing lose sleep over grown ass men with poorly applied makeup and lycra fucking arm warmers thinking that he's entitled to a book deal because he has a fetish.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's a sexual orientation, not a fetish. I'm kidding.
You know, just it's how can they just change the definition of reality? Like I think it's very unfair for the rest of the world to be forced to take these people seriously.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Oh, hello, my girl.
In the UK, I can't stop reading about people having police visits over this stuff.
Oh my God.
It's relentless. It's insane.
It's
This
I
is
can't
the
even.
new religion. Like, I mean, come on,
It is.
knocking on doors because you misgendered someone on Twitter. This is insane. Like, this
Yeah.
should be making all of the West. People
It's
are weak.
terrifying. They are.
Yeah.
Oh, it's terrifying and it's disheartening to watch.
Yeah.
And then, we just can continue to get more and more silenced.
It's seems like an uphill battle, but I hope, at least, and I do believe it, deep down, most people, at least most women and a good portion of men too, are like just normal, decent people that, I'm not saying everyone's perfect, but I'm just saying decent people that aren't like sexual deviants that want to like diddle children and run around like this and be so incredibly disrespectful to all females on the planet. You know what I mean? Like, most people, I don't think, have that MO. So I think that's why it's so important that even while it's at its scariest, that we can, like, we double down, we triple down.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure.
You know what
Now
I
is the
mean?
time. Yep. Right now is the perfect time.
Yeah.
There's like a thirst among people to, like, I get a lot of support on Twitter and just in life. Actually, I'm surprised in Canada, which you would think is just the worst, which it is. New Brunswick is kind of fighting back. I have to look more into that. I was shocked that like Eastern Canada is starting to kind of have a pushback. So that's great. There is momentum. We have to double down. We cannot relent right now.
Yeah. Mhm.
Amen.
And I think that, they're counting on people kind of getting too tired and just saying, fine, you guys want to.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah. I just post to the abyss now. Instagram, it's a joke. Like, my reels used to get minimum 1,000 to 5,000 views, sometimes 25,000. I get 110 likes. Like, you have to have 30 followers to get 10 likes on something. It's a fucking joke. Since I got, like, they've took down the medical photos I posted, and that's been the end of it. And they took away all my ability to collab. It's just like, I'll keep posting, but they're truly trying to take away thank God for TERF Twitter.
Yeah.
But then it makes me, of course, afraid to promote my stuff on YouTube. Like, I promote it in the framework of only my socials, but like, was this any other project in any of my producing for acting, I would be paying for ads. But I feel like if I do that, then I will get my channel taken down. So it's really frustrating me as like someone that is good at producing and seeing that I'm totally kneecapped.
I think because it's obvious that, people in our sphere of influence aren't going to get financial help for our books, like Mr. Armwarmers over here and whatnot, that, raising funds and stuff will have to be done through like crowdfunding and that sort of thing.
Oh, I know. It's just like, it's frustrating that I'm too afraid to even use my own funds to push my work because I'm afraid that doing it will actually result in my work being canceled. Like,
you're talking about going and like purchasing Google ads and stuff.
Well,
like,
no, I would probably just do it social media. Like, I would purchase Instagram ad.
Okay, yeah.
And then things like that. And I see like Matt Walsh doing it and stuff like that, but I just, they have the money to deal with pushback. I don't. So that's all. It's just like looking at the framework of, we have to just work so much harder and to even have a little voice heard. And then I see Matt Walsh taking over the entire fucking conversation in the US and making it even more tribal than it needs to be. It just, I'm sorry. I've had
I absolutely agree.
thoughts today specifically because I really, really, really want my episode with Amy from Woman to Woman to be seen, because the incarcerated women situation is just so is something that is just not even close to talked about on a mainstream media level, like the sports are, or like the medicine's starting to be. And it's really important to me that this stuff gets out, and those reels specifically are just getting like squashed.
That sucks. She's amazing.
Yeah. And so that's all. It's just like, this week have been like, and it's also because I took so much time off, so I was really ready to get going, and I was like, wow, this is the worst my episode's done since I started.
Oh yeah, if anyone listening knows a philanthropist that would like to have the 2-type model be mainstream knowledge, please put them in touch with me. And so I wrote a book about the most common kind of trans, so that my kind can better understand themselves, and so that their lovers can better understand them in turn.
And it's not just telling or noticing from this conversation, it's probably not it's not a normative book. It's a descriptive, not a prescriptive book. You're describing something. You're not making any judgments on the condition or. suggestions on policy or something. It's information.
It's mostly just information. I do get in some of the chapters near the end, I do talk about the societal aspects and have some suggestions for some sort of for how we culturally integrate this. But I wanted to get the is out of the way before addressing the ought. And because it is the norm for people to jump straight to ought these days without understanding the phenomenon
Absolutely.
they're talking about.
Absolutely. And I'm sure people have
Not allowed to buy it.
Without getting this described plenty of oughts for us to chew on.
Yeah, plenty of stuff that we've both seen dozens of times before, paying attention to the turf wars and all that stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of oughts happening, but very few people understanding the actual phenomenon here.
Should we discuss that briefly?
There's a lot to discuss. I don't think he understands the phenomenon himself, or he's certainly not being honest with himself about it. Mr. Turf Wars.
That one.
Turf Wars.
Yeah, that really pissed me off because the ones coming with the ought are the gender ideologues. Women are just saying, no, fuck off. We want our rights. Thanks. And it seems like he wants to commiserate with, Benjamin about this, the hating on the TERFs. And that kind of just bothers me. I think that women have a much better analysis on the destruction of our own rights than a fucking fetishist dude.
Yeah. Well, that's what
with blue eyeshadow.
Yeah, but that's what they do. Like they're never straightforward with their feelings or their MO, and they try to find common ground with other misogynists. So they'll join in on the LGBT LMNOQ.
LGBT.
Like I said, it's a pair of phenomena. Homosexual transgenderism is different. It has different motivators, it has different cause. It is the classic image of transsexualism. And it is the less common kind in English-speaking countries, whereas the auto-heterosexual transsexualism is the most common kind. And so I think I wrote the auto-heterosexual because I think that if there's a cause that is behind the vast majority of cases of transgenderism, those people deserve to understand why they want those serious treatments. I think adults should have access to them for sure. And I'm probably a little more pro child transition than that in hindsight might be the best. Like, I do think there's some kids that benefit from it for sure.
Did he say he's pro child transition?
Yep. Or more than most or something like that. Yes, he does understand it, which is horrible.
And that's what creeps me out the most. So it's AGP's pushing medicalization on children more than anybody.
Yes.
In terms of and it's really.
I'd be curious because
their fetish is so strong that they do suffer truly because they've chased their fetish so far, and then they turn around and they just think, oh, wouldn't it be better? It's very strange to project it on children. It's very strange.
Yes.
It's all sexual. So yeah.
And I noticed, how he was saying like his brand, his AGP brand of a trans men or women or whatever he thinks he is today, how it's most in the US. And I'm assuming he's speaking maybe all of North America, including Canada, but how they're AGP in other countries, like, how you're talking about the lady boys in Thailand, or, how in Muslim countries, because they're so homophobic, they make gay men, live as women, basically. That's how it goes on over there. But I'm curious about the porn consumption in those countries, because I'm not familiar.
It's high. It's very high. In Muslim Arabic countries, it's very, very high.
And I'd be curious.
They have among the highest porn consumption in the world.
Interesting. Well, all that weird stuff that goes on in Dubai with all the working girls and like IG models that go over there, and they're getting like shat on and stuff, like wild, like horror. The stuff those sheiks are into, like you'd have to put a loaded gun to my head to get me onto a plane to the Middle East to go turn a trick over there, because that's a good way to disappear, first of all. They're just like with the AGPs, they are so far into their addiction, and because it's a progressive disease like any other addiction, they're not getting off on just the normal porn. They need the more taboo, the better.
Do you think maybe the porn consumption in the Muslim countries, do you think it's more alpha oriented? Is that why they're
I'm
not so
curious
trans
what
identified?
sort of
Because
porn
like the trans identified seems to be the beta train in terms of identifying later on as a trans identified man. It seems to be the betas that do that. So I'm just wondering, or do you think it's simply because they it's unaccepted for them to live as AGPs, so they just would keep it quiet and still have that kind of fetish behind
I think they'd
closed
probably
doors?
keep it quiet. I think they'd probably keep
Okay.
it quiet. I wouldn't be surprised if lots of them have that fetish. Maybe less for reasons, but I think likely it's just less socially acceptable. I wanted
Okay.
to comment like earlier, the reason why I think it's so high in Western countries, literally the trans rights movement here in the West, it grew out of like cross-dressing clubs. Like that's kind of where it was formed. And I mean cross-dressers are
Oh,
AGP. Like that's the
yeah.
first organizations that today are the leading like trans rights organizations. Like in the UK, there's the Beaumont Society. They all started as cross-dressing clubs.
What, like
Like these
Molly?
were, yeah,
Oh,
these were usually heterosexual married
interesting.
men. They would go on cruises. They would dress up, and that kind of grew into the kind of trans rights movements, whereas I think the actual
Huh.
homosexual transsexuals were kind of in the gay community, so that's kind of where that connection was. But
Mhm.
it definitely grew out of those cross-dressing clubs, and I think that's why here in the West they are more kind of vocal. I'd be surprised if other countries didn't have the same rates of men having this fetish, but I my guess is that it's more behind closed doors. It's just not as acceptable. Whereas here they had these clubs to kind of push them out into the open and give them like a community to connect and feel like it's more normal and kind of come out that way. That's just my
Yeah.
thinking on this. Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't know that at all about the clubs.
But it just seems so wild to me that the most common cause of transgenderism is not being allowed to talk about. There's no Wikipedia pages for it. There is no mention in WPATH's Standards of Care document, the document that clinicians refer to for patient treatment.
I
There is
didn't
no
even
mention
know.
of
Are you serious?
They do
They
not
have
mention
unix?
autoanophilia. They have
AGP?
Yeah, they exactly.
can't
No,
believe
you can
that.
open that document, do a little control F.
It's
Yeah,
institution.
it's intense.
Oh,
The
God.
cover up is that thorough that the main document that clinicians refer to treat the patients does not name the well-known causes of these conditions they're being tasked with treating. If you go on the standards of care and you go hit Control F, search for autogynephilia, search for autoandrophilia, you will find 0 things in there because it is not mentioned in there. And it's in the DSM, autogynephilia is only mentioned once as a predisposing factor, and autoandrophilia is not mentioned. And that's because the main scientists right now, like Bailey and Blanchard, I don't think they've come around yet to the autoandrophilia explanation for non-homosexual FTM transsexualism. But I'm pretty sure that it is, if not the leading cause of FTM transgenderism, it is the second most leading cause.
On
Yeah.
what grounds? On what grounds?
Yeah, like I'm sorry, but no, it's the internalized homophobia and it's the ones with autism and it's the ones with comorbidities with other mental health issues. This is not a fetish thing for girls and women.
It's
No.
just
By and large, like you can see it. Like I mean, and like the increased rate, it's like you think all these 15-year-old girls 13-year-old girls, they're it's not they hate their feminizing body. They don't they hate the puberty
the
they're
vast
going through. They don't.
majority have severe sexual trauma.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
all of them.
This is just fucking like he can't be saying this in good faith.
No,
Like I can't believe he's saying this in good faith.
he's
No,
not.
he just wants there
Eva,
to be
you're
a
the
female
fair one.
equivalent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
'cause
he
I
just
mean,
wants there to be a female equivalent. I think the closest that you look, like I said, I don't think it's impossible. There is like a trans man on Twitter who kind of thinks that they might be this type, but in my opinion, the closest you get is kind of young teenage girls sort of idolizing and perhaps ever so slightly fetishizing like gay male relationships because it seems safer. Because look, they're young teenage girls, they obviously are starting to have feelings and sexual feelings, and they want like a safe outlet for them. So I think the most that I see is perhaps them looking at gay male relationships and wishing, oh, I wish I was kind of in that kind of relationship. It's more equal. It's more, it's not the lot that I have been given as a woman. I think it's very rarely directed at their own bodies, their own physiology, like, oh, I wish I had a male body and being turned on by that. I think the closest you get is kind of just maybe being turned on by the idea of like two men together and you're sort of a part of that. But I just don't see the equivalence that he's trying to make.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on with that. I think that is such a perfect way of explaining the how you could come at it from a non I'm trying to escape the trauma I incurred in my female body, like, because there are like
Yeah.
multiple reasons, of course. No group of anyone is a monolith, but the fact
Yeah.
he's saying this stuff, like, it's what a liar.
Yeah, and I feel like the overwhelming need to change your body for females is hatred of your body. If anything, it's like hatred of your sex body, hatred of the sexualization of your body.
Well, like, if you look at the prevalence of eating disorders among like young women,
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of the reasons they're women, young girls are trying to transition into men are the same reason a lot of them develop eating disorders, where it's like trying to control your body and the way the outside world sexualizes that body. Because to experience life as a female, no male, whether they put on all the blue eyeshadow in the world, will ever know what that's like to be born into this world and have to grow up in it as a female, a biological female, not a gay man, not a man with a fetish, okay, not a man that might even appear quite feminine, which, and there's room for that in this world. And for the accusation that, TERFs hate men in makeup. No, I don't. There's tons of male makeup artists that are amazing and very gifted, and they aren't perverts. It's amazing how they're able to put on makeup and not want to mutilate children. Like, that's crazy how that
Well,
works.
that's the thing. Yeah, because I used to be called, my friends would call me a fag hag, like my gay friends, and I loved men in makeup and all that kind of stuff. I didn't until I realized that they were doing it like he was. It was something I actually thought was fun. That's what I think, and I think most women would find that the case, and then they realize, oh wait, they're really trying to like transfer rapists and things. Like most of us, I think, probably would have supported it prior to learning about AGPs, basically.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's what they're trying to operate on. The like the boomer ladies that are selling cookies in the suburbs and taking their kids to soccer games, that are kind of separated from the grittier aspects of this, haven't seen it because they only watch CNN,
Yeah.
They're lying to them, saying, oh, it's, they're just confused men that want to live as women. They don't want to hurt anyone. So they are trying to do that, like operate on that whole
and they're preying on women's like kind of love of gay men and that kind of thing. So like it's I think it's another bad faith fucking argument too.
Well, not even women's love of gay men, but women, like, being willing to accept gentle men or not tear people apart, like, just being more emotionally I don't, help me out. I have like
no, I see what you mean. More emotionally intelligent, more emotionally evolved, like that kind of thing. Yeah, I see what you mean.
If you go on the standards of care and you go hit Control F, search for autogynephilia, search for autoandrophilia, you will find 0 things in there because it is not mentioned in there. And it's in the DSM, autogynephilia is only mentioned once as a predisposing factor, and autoandrophilia is not mentioned. And that's because the main scientists right now, like Bailey and Blanchard, I don't think they've come around yet to the autoandrophilia explanation for non-homosexual FTM transsexualism. But I'm pretty sure that it is, if not the leading cause of FTM transgenderism, it is the second most leading cause.
One of the meta levels of this conversation that's just so fascinating is that the most important work on this topic is happening outside of the academy.
Exactly. And that's something that's why I was able to do this, is that I'm not in an institution. I'm just an autist with a laptop and a fixation on getting the science right. And so I've been talking with others. There's a small group of us online who have sort of similar intellectual orientation and are interested, and we talk to each other about it and bounce ideas off each other. And so we have this extra institutional knowledge production system that's happening, which
he's so insufferable.
That's happening right now. So
he's just so fucking insufferable.
Plus like so, and I think within the DSM-5 transvestite fetishism is listed, right?
So a fetish for himself, like, it's
that's
just
probably what that, I mean, that's like the synonym. Okay, there's something else that struck me, but now I can't remember what it is.
His his narcissism, maybe? Did that strike you? Because that fucking
Yeah. His self-diagnosed autist. This is the way he talks about it. It's like, you don't even
Did he
have a
say
fucking autism
autistic or an
diagnosis,
artist?
dude. I think he
Wait.
meant autist, like an autistic person, autist, because unless he says artist like that, but that didn't make sense. I think he said autist. It's like, so he's nicknamed himself as a fucking self-diagnosis that he doesn't even have an official diagnosis for. It's infuriating.
Wait, what? Did that
He calls himself
I
an
seriously-
autist.
Okay. Okay. I can't. I just like I really can't.
It's like, you don't even have an official diagnosis, dude. He's like, I feel like it's part of this just stems from people's obsession with wanting things. And as a person like Bunny, you can relate to this for sure. I know that. But it's like, as a person with all these fucked up things wrong with their brain, it really, really, really pisses me off that people fetishize that shit. Like, he's self-diagnosed autistic, which is like, why do people?
Oh my god.
He's well, I have bipolar disorder, you have schizophrenia. That's like what makes it, it's like people's bios, they're like, I have
yeah, but I guess
autism, or I have this, or I have that. It's like, you just get a fucking personality.
I guess it doesn't bother me because like when I don't see myself like, yes, I have schizophrenia, but I very much do. And it's been independently verified over, I've lost track how many times I've been dragged to the psych ward, but I don't like introduce myself as a schizophrenic person. Like,
well,
that's
that's the point.
Personal identity.
But that's what they do.
Right.
Like, he likely that's probably the third thing he says to someone about himself.
Yeah.
Every time he meets somebody.
I guess what I'm trying to say is don't let it stress you out, because if they
it does. It pisses me off because it's bad. It's bad for society. This oppression fetishism, this like fetishizing people's mental illness, this like need to be other, to have any kind of like sense of identity. This like, essentially, it's like we're going in mass psychosis identity crisis, and half of it's because people want to have these things because they don't really know what they are. And if they did know what they were, they wouldn't.
Why has that become such a phenomenon lately, do you guys think? Like I've noticed that too, like on the little kids, what's the new app, TikTok? They'll be on TikTok saying they have like DID, which, by the way, I have been to way more psych wards than I am willing to publicly admit. And I've met a lot of other fellow crazy people. I do not think DID is a real thing. I do not think it's
what
real.
is DID supposed to be?
Multiple personalities. Like someone thinks their name is Jane, that's a dog catcher, and then they'll switch personality and say, now I'm Bob and I'm a corn farmer or whatever. And I'm sorry, I don't believe that. So I know people can dissociate and stuff and have fugue states, and that's very real. But as to how schizophrenia is portrayed in the media, it's just so when people try to do it, like, because they'll never get it right, because they're relying on the information they've been given. His old outdated copy of a DSM, probably 3 editions ago, when the autogynephilia was still in it as a disorder, by the way, Mr. I'm so scientifically minded. Well, then get an up-to-date copy of the book you're fucking, or anyway. But it's just, they're never going to get it right? So I think part of me, because I've been tempted to talk about like what schizophrenia is, but part of me, I'm like, if I put that information out there, am I doing actual like people like me a disservice? Because I don't want to give people a roadmap on how to, there are people out there that obviously want to trick psychiatrists and stuff, you know what I mean? But
or just don't go to one and self-diagnose, because apparently that's enough.
I mean, and that's the thing too. Like, I've never like when I've been diagnosed, I was never there willingly. I wasn't like, I want to go get diagnosed today. I was like,
you get taken in a gurney.
like by like the SWAT team.
Very much against your will.
Cuffed to a gurney in public.
Yeah. Oh, the ankle cuffing is the worst part about it.
Dude, and and they were like, why did they even call us? Because I will go willing. I know I am not a big strong person. I'm not gonna fight. I don't want to be thrown around, and I'll go willingly.
Oh, I was fighting.
Not me. Quietly,
I was trying to leap into
you know, but they'll beat the fuck up if you fight too. So that's never a good idea.
Oh, I know. They strapped my ankles down, and that
They
really
did.
upset me.
Yeah,
And
they
that's kind
did.
of what took me out of it, though, I think, because I really I mean, I can't even stand being under sheets with my ankles under like them tucked in. It drives me absolutely insane.
They have a full out. I watched one girl that was kirking out get stuck into a wheelchair, like a restraint wheelchair. It was awful, man. Like they had her like
That sounds like a
her
fucking
neck,
nightmare.
her arms, her waist, everything. Then they put a spit mask on her head because she was trying to spit at people. Yeah, don't fight. Sneak out when no one's looking.
I mean, I was dissociating. Then I think they sedated me because I woke
Yeah.
up. I was like, oh, I've been asleep for a minute. Anyway, go ahead.
This is an example of it where the traditional gatekeepers of knowledge are no longer the sole hoarders of it, and it is now being spread among the populace. And so
Thank God
there
for
are
you
experts.
autists out there.
It is. We need jobs that pertain to the fixations we develop, and in that way we can help society and be productive. And so yeah, there's a few other like autogynephiles and autoangelophiles I know who we all talk about this stuff. We've read the science. We bounce ideas off of each other to try to figure out what's true. And so there's this extra institutional group of experts that are currently unknown, but I'm going to be trying to make our presence more known as sort of a check against the institutional figures for when we think they're wrong, we're going to try to correct it.
You're a league of extraordinary gentlemen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's a really promising moment right now. It's going to be at first I think trans people are going to try to ignore this book and this talking about that I'm doing because they don't want to talk about the subject. They don't. But once they realize that it is not going to go away, it is not something that scientists just made up. It is something scientists carefully stumbled upon after generations of work on the subject. It is not going to go away, and we need to talk about it. And it's going to be really ugly at first. The discourse, the way that autogynephilia and autoandrophilia are talked about is really bad. It's people who talk about it usually try to use it to denigrate trans people or to elicit disgust and shame. It's not out of a care for this sexual minority, this misunderstood sexual minority that in many respects is scared of its own face.
And the shame that is piled upon
This poor sexual minority. Go fuck yourself. It's like, look at what's going on right now. It's like we've streets with rows of flags. Like every institution, every fucking government organization, like caters to this like tiny percentage of fucking fetishists that they act like they're the most.
Yeah.
You think
Well,
it's
and
it will be ugly when people finally know what autogynephilia is because it's a perverted fetish.
Yeah, he's sad about the way it's talked about, like how you just said it's a fetishist, like, as if there's no reason people talk about this way, as if we just want to be mean, as if it isn't because you guys post these terrible, maybe not him, but these kinds of men post grotesque pictures and videos. This fetish leads them to do terrible things, to abuse the women in their lives, to to take over our spaces. If there's just no reason, we just want to be mean. We just talk about it so grossly because we want to be mean. That's very offensive.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's such a cop out and a really poor one too.
Yeah.
For being pornified, sissy hypno weirdos.
They all are.
Tactic that is used. It's counterproductive because it doesn't allow the man to go through the processes of really seeing himself. It causes him to run even further away. It shuts down his own acceptance. If he can get himself to accept himself as himself, then he might not make as many demands on society to accept him as something that he's not. Right? It's a feedback loop that you can see playing out in the activist circles.
Right. The sort of the shame that is being there's a lot of hating on AGPs, and that shame causes them to retreat even further and to not consider the possibility that the theory is true, even though it is true. I mean, to the extent that it's the most common cause.
And the association of AGP to like a tyrannical narcissistic personality disorder is fused in the public mind, or is at least fused in the TERF kind of consensus. Like men are like these kind of men, when not every AGP man
Right.
is a meanie bully that wants to
No,
control
and
the
that's-
world.
That's literally what he just said about women. Like, do you hear yourself, Matthew? Is this your friend, Eva? Is this your boy? You need to come get your boy.
I
Benjamin.
think his name is Benjamin.
I was like, who's Matthew?
Oh, what's his name?
Benjamin. But it's
Sorry, Benjamin. You're very suave and debonair, and
But
unwannabe.
yeah, like about the fusion of the AGP with the narcissist, I'm sorry. There's a good reason for that. Like I said before. Yeah, not all of them, enough of them, a good portion of them are incredibly
Yeah.
narcissistic. There's a good reason we've noticed that.
Well, and I'm so sick of this argument where like TERF makes a great point, like, hey, this exists. Then their argument is always either to argue with a totally different thing, saying you one is dead. That's not what we were talking about. Or it's to say, no, here's the one person that I've met that has a slightly different characteristic, ergo, this, experience that everybody is experiencing simultaneously is invalid. And I'm going to keep,
well,
mutilating.
in my episode with Amy Ichikawa, who does Woman to Woman, who runs Woman to Woman Inc., she says that like that was the narcissism is part of a huge culprit in their issue with the trans identified male inmates. Beyond, she's like, they don't even have to be violent. It's because she said, the women tried to be open to this and tried to, be tolerant and tried to understand from that perspective. And she was like, even the ones that she became friends with turned into abusive dynamics because of their narcissism. So even if they're not violent, even if they're not sexually assault, they're narcissistic abusers. And she's like, she said that they're the most abusive relationship she's been in terms of friendships. And it wasn't even a violent thing. It was just that they are narcissists.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's been my firsthand experience. I can't speak for anyone else, but for me, yeah, like, and I'm still friends with trans people and they know that I'm a TERF, like, just so all the TRAs out there know, like, you can be friends with people you disagree with. I know that's crazy. Imagine that. Sorry, but they are so overwhelmingly mentally ill and narcissistic, which makes sense. Like, of course they are. Like, if you are so unhappy, you're willing to go through some weird mutilation and pump your body full of hormones, you're obviously an unhappy person. Like, so, and I'm not faulting them for being mentally ill, and I don't want, anyone that see this in the future to mistake the two. What I'm saying is narcissism is a big problem in a lot of different types of mental illnesses. It prevents the mentally ill person from being honest with themselves to address the illness, like, head on and correctly, So, of course, like, the hand at narcissism and pedophilia and a few other things seem to just be kind of mutually inclusive when it comes to autogynephilia, at least in my experience.
Yeah, definitely overlapping. Yeah, very well said.
There are actually a lot of sensitive men. There's a lot of sensitive boys who actually internalize a lot of the feminist what's the term, misandry, and that's kind of facilitated.
And that causes them gender dysphoria.
Yeah,
like that contributes to their gender dysphoria. I know that like contributed to mine for a bit. Buying into feminist stuff a little too much, because feminists aren't always right about stuff.
Yeah. And feminists are right about all things 100% of the time, and we all believe that.
Yeah, it's. Oh man, I forgot what I was going to say.
He really doesn't like women, basically, because any woman that stands up for herself, it's like all he can do is like. I feel like half of this he just shits on TERFs or feminists or whatever. Like he doesn't like women, but he fancies himself one.
I just wish I could know, like, where who's patient zero of autogynephilia, like, if I could get in a time machine and find patient zero. I was looking at Cheerios and started to say zero.
You're glitching.
Such a fucking hot mess.
No, it would be interesting though. Like,
right? like how did
Yeah.
like who's the first person who like realized like it was sexually gratifying to try to present as a woman and a man, you know what I mean? And then like how did they spread it to others or whatever? Like because
Roxy, the other sex worker I interviewed, said she thinks it started with glamour magazines. So it might have been like a kind of like multiple occurring phenomenon.
I'm
Like
gonna
the
have to
glamour,
disagree
like
with
I think
her,
it was
though.
earlier. I think it was way
Yeah.
earlier. When did glamour magazine start? Because
Like,
this was like
Far
18th
too
century.
late.
well, it's
Far
yeah,
too
18,
late, yeah.
1800s.
Okay.
Like
Then, yeah,
like
maybe-
the
like draw like weird paintings
like
that
the
were
first to ever like sexualized images of women, basically.
oh well that
being
gotta go to caves for
glamour.
that.
Well, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
But I do
It
know, like,
it
there
is it was like in terms of recorded, it's 18th century, right?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it could have. That's a good
So it coincides
idea, yeah.
with that.
the closest thing I would say to like full out like cross-dressing for sexual gratification that I can think of would be like what they called like molly houses back in 16th or 17th century. I know that's like 200 years apart, but something like, and that was over like in the UK, and they were basically like private sex clubs, like Eva was explaining, where they'd meet up and cross-dress and hang out with other like-minded gentlemen. And it was, they'd get busted up from time to time, so you can actually find old newspaper articles where somebody got
I'm curious. I'm gonna look this up. Molly clubs?
Yeah, Molly House.
Molly
like-
House.
like the
Molly
name,
houses.
Molly the name.
Mhm.
And then house. And it's just like a, sex club, basically, for arm warmers over here.
So basically, because of this dynamic where the shame is making people be quiet, it is only the most, like, those of us who are reasonable and who understand our condition, we know to keep quiet because we don't want to.
Do you?
We don't want to catch a bunch of shit from both sides.
Sorry, that was slow, but it was funny for me.
And
Slow for my
so we're
brain.
quiet, and without those of us who are self-aware about our orientations, it's just going to make it so the most extreme unhinged examples are the ones known to the public conscious. They're not going to see the reasonable auto-heterosexuals who are like, they've figured out how to integrate it in their life in a way that, allows them to still be productive at work. Maybe they make less demands of others in terms of the overriding that's needed done to adhere to pronouns and such. Basically, I think if auto-androphiles and auto-gynephiles can understand their orientation better, they'll have the rule book for getting in touch with that inner cross-gender self, and will be able to individually improve their gender dysphoria situation because they're better at tapping into that self. But without a guidebook to how the orientation works, it's hard for them to figure out how to tap into it.
And then they're left to either self-loathing or going into these Reddit communities and becoming part of an ideology that's not rooted in reality. It's rooted in whatever it's rooted in. It's theory.
Yeah, it's the gender religion that's happening right now. Yeah, I do think that gender religion, that memeplex, I do think it's going to be very threatened by this memeplex I'm putting out, because the explanation I'm putting out there offers an alternative explanation for understanding transgenderism, and people need an explanation for it. They don't understand it right now. They want to understand it. And
they need
mainstream
their
explanation-
messiah to explain it to them.
like this.
I'm sorry. He's just like, you can just tell that he thinks he's the smartest person in the room.
About this, but they can't quite place what it is, but they can tell there's something off. And so there needs to be a bundle of ideas that people can understand transgenderism through. And I'm introducing a bundle of ideas that will give an alternative explanation so that they don't have to rely on gender woo-woo and they can rely on gender science instead. And which is very much just in my liberal way of thinking, that it's good to adhere to truth. I think that, I'm introducing something that does threaten the existence of gender ideology. And
what are some of the, when you think through it, what are some of the outcomes of it on a societal level, on a personal level, that you've seen? Like if gender ideology leads to some bad conclusions, like what are some of the conclusions that you see deriving from your memeplex?
My memeplex, I think some of the more intense overreaches by the trans movement are going to be curtailed, like the sports thing. I'll just mention that one because I'm not trying to be too political, but like I'm 6'4", I'm very jacked. No amount of estrogen will ever make it fair for me to compete with females. And so I partially understand through personal experience, but you know,
sorry, I just gotta like, I'm very jacked. Like, let's compare biceps, bro.
Caught me off guard.
He's a hula hooper. He's a hula hooper.
He's jacked.
But he still would beat you in any sport, most likely, because he's, you know, like I had this one roommate that was guy, and like it pissed me off because I worked out all the time. I lifted weights. He fucking smoked a pack of cigarettes a day. Never worked out and moving. He was just so much more fit than me. Like he could just do so much more than me. And I was like,
stronger, maybe not fit, but
well, like he not, yeah, like probably running, maybe not, but like him, like furniture, like everything. It was just like he was just naturally so much stronger than I was. And I was just like, this is, it, you know,
there's nothing.
Male advantage is real.
He's the, you know, former AGP mind of his time. He's writing the framework for all other AGPs to follow his rules that he's laying down to find themselves better, or whatever the fuck he's trying to get at.
Yeah, and the science of this is that it's a sexual fetish, and that's what he wants to like erase. Sorry, I ran over what you're saying. The science, he keeps saying like, I want to have the science of this address. The science of it is that it's a fetish. That's the established science of your condition. So, and you're trying to erase that.
Well, and like most of the established science is like what statistics gathered by child abusers. Like,
yeah, but like, I mean, transvestite fetishism is essentially what AGP is. So like the science is that you're a fetishist.
Yeah, but it's just
like,
how can he's like,
he wants to redefine the science into autosexuality or whatever, auto-heterosexuality.
Yeah, and they want to define women to whatever, whatever suits their whim that moment.
Tell by watching sports that shit ain't fair if you mix males, post-puberty males, in with females. Basically, I think some of the excesses of the trans movement will wither away, and some of the more reasonable requests that can be accommodated, you know, such as people having access to transition. I think that's important, and that will still remain. I don't want transition to go away. I think it's good that people have that option after carefully weighing their situation. And I think it'll make gender be taught differently in schools. Because right.
So I just want to say to the first point, I don't really quarrel with that. Like on the basis of bodily autonomy and like someone who's, you know, like pretty into, I don't know, like body modification in a way, right? I don't care. I don't care if like adult men decide to transition, to take cross-sex hormone, whatever. I'm fine.
Yeah, I think if this wasn't a huge trend and if it wasn't being pushed on kids, people wouldn't really care. Like we might have something to say about it ethically, medical ethics, whatever. But I just think people wouldn't care, especially if they weren't trying to be legally considered females and things like that. Then it's like, okay, there's plastic surgery. It happens. So
right.
Yeah, overall I feel the same way, except I do get concerned about the AGP bottom surgery because it's an acceleration of their fetish. It makes them more dangerous to women and children. And so that's the only like I think that that men who are heterosexual getting that surgery should be on a registry.
Wait, like them cutting their balls off increases their.
It's a sign that they're acceleration. If they're heterosexual, yeah, it's a sign that they're. That's why it's dangerous for them to be in prison with women. Like if they're homosexual, not likely. But if they're AGP and if they're Leah Thomas. Like that they should be considered more dangerous to women and children, not less.
Like I fully assumed, and I'd read on like Reddit, you know, like the trans, like you know their interior.
I have a meowing cat. Hold on.
And like their own stuff. Like I'd read that many of them actually lose like contact with that part of their libido after a while of not having like testosterone, of their body not producing testosterone. So I'd fully assumed that there was that there would have been like a reduction in risk after a certain amount of time of being castrated.
I would think that really, I mean, I would have to see some data either way to know for sure, obviously, because I don't know. I have no idea. Actually, I haven't met many people that are post-op. I've seen it in person, obviously, but I don't know anyone personally very well. But I do know like the ones that are AGPs that are on cross-sex hormones and have been on it for a while. They do their penis becomes it withers, essentially. It withers down to like this gross looking little skin thing, and they can sort of get erections, some of them, but it's not a full actual boner, and their ejaculation is also quite different, and obviously it becomes non-viable after a while too. So, but I think that, Katelyn, you do make an interesting point that because they have pushed their fetish to such a point where they can't return from, I think there's probably a part of them that's really angry about that. And if they're trapped with vulnerable women, who's going to bear the brunt of that but the vulnerable women that they're locked up with? So it is like, however you cut it, it gives vulnerable women the shitty end of the stick that they don't have any business having to deal with anyway, you know?
I think it's partly also the depravity, but like this is, I think I've read data on it, but it's also from John Mueller, who's like clinical sex offender treatment provider who like fights to keep these guys basically locked up. And then I think it was Roxy was the other person that suggested this, because she said that it's a linear path. And the way John described it is the linear path ends with being aroused by the murder of sissified boys, like boys, not girls. Like that's the end stage of like the end stage of like if the depravity goes to a certain level. But in relation to surgically castrating themselves, it's about killing the sissy boy inside and hating that sissy boy and shaming that sissy boy inside. So like the acceleration of the fetish is self-castration, because of the shame, like the arousal from shame and like the self-hatred, because like the dead naming of the little boy. And that's why the murder of little boys, if you keep that porn depravity train going, that's where it ends. That's what I mean. And it's also what was shown on the websites with the man from California, the Berkeley professor, I think, that Redux exposed.
I was about to say, you mean the eunuch archives. I wanted to jump in and say, lest anybody think you're being too extreme. Like, no, the eunuch archives, which Redux exposed, which they did a months-long investigation on, they have all these stories about castration and stuff. They have a section for minors, and these are sexualized stories. They are about young boys being castrated. So yeah, no, that is not too extreme what you're saying. Like, this stuff is out there. They do write these fictional stories about this. They do have fantasies about this. I hadn't heard of it going as far as murder, but I mean,
well, that's if it's allowed
further
like,
and further.
If it goes further, like it's not that everyone's going to get there, but like
of course,
that is the final result of the most depraved they go, basically.
Yeah, and anybody watching this should go, type into Google Redux, the eunuch archives. Like, this is a real thing. There are men on these things. And by the way, the WPATH Standards of Care now have a chapter on eunuchs, and they were collaborating with that website. So yeah, it's all connected.
The genderbread person and the gender unicorn. Those diagrams.
What do they evoke in you on a visceral level? Is that like the opposite of Born This Way? You get really cold and angry in your seat.
I get it's those diagrams. They talk about sex, gender identity, and gender expression. All those things as these separate sort of variables, little sliders that each person has. But it doesn't say how those are connected. Whereas my theory says how they're connected and how they relate to each other. How
gender is downstream from sex.
Exactly. Gender is downstream of sex. Without sex, there is no gender. In fact, in my book, I figured out that basically just as femininity is femaleness and masculinity is maleness, gender is sexness. It is qualities associated with sex.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, so basically gender is sexness. And we definitely just have to hash out as a society which situations is it more appropriate to prioritize sexiness over sex, and which situations should we prioritize sex over sexness.
Oh,
Ladies and
Huh?
gentlemen, the preeminent scientific mind of our time.
there's something.
I didn't follow that.
I
Eva, did
kind of
you?
did, and I sort of get what he's trying to get at with like gender is sexness. At least it's trying to connect it to biology. At least it's trying. Where I disagree is in terms of prioritizing one over the other, it should always be sex. That's what I would just say. It should always be sex. I don't want to be like too generous, but I just, at least, you know how the trans activists say, oh, gender and sex are different. I mean, they lie. They don't really believe that. At least he's saying, well, where we get our ideas of gender is connected to sex. You cannot separate those two if you want to use those two terms, which I don't really like to do, but I think that's what he's trying to do.
I don't know what he's trying to do.
I just
At
heard
this point.
too many of the same words repeated and I got confused.
I feel like he's just making words up now. Like
He is.
autism, sexness.
Yeah, Dave Chappelle, I know that they make up words to win arguments.
Clearly it's working to some extent too. I'm baffled.
Go to the House with. Say this is the framework through which we can hash out this hot button topic.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to get involved in the.
I'm just saying that's the language, that's the simplicity.
Right.
No, to complexity is perfect. Very well done. You've had several phases. Your skeletal destiny, like you're really good. You might end up in a think tank someday. So,
well, like I said, if someone wants to put me in a think tank right now for the next 6 or 7 months until royalties start coming in, I need to have that funded, because I'm not going to stop thinking about this stuff. Yeah, I just need to be able to buy groceries and pay rent at the same time.
Well, you picked the right economy to do this.
What's that?
The worst economy on record.
Massive
Massive inflation. I'm just teasing. But
Yeah. We never get to choose the economy. We just react to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I've like as I explained just with gender, basically as I just explained gender very simply, in terms of sex, I also explain sexual orientation and transgenderism quite simply. And so people who read my book will walk away actually understanding the most common kind of transgenderism on a level that is way, way deeper than is accessible to people now. Like people's understanding of gender right now is not even gender 101 college level. It's like remedial level. And my book is going to make the most common kind of transgenderism legible, understandable, comprehensible. And through that, we'll be able to start figuring out how to integrate this into society in a way that we can get enough people to agree upon.
Mm-hmm. Is a woman who marries an AGP entering into a bigamous relationship?
There's something inherently poly about this in some way. Like I personally do non-monogamy because I don't want to be restricted. I like freedom too much. Not that I actually act on it because I'm pretty.
Yeah, that's why. That's why.
I just like to know I can. But basically, yeah, the woman in a relationship with AGP has to consider both the male and female sides of their partner, and it can be complex and also it can be hard for those women.
I have to say, that's disgusting to me. The idea of dating someone like that. Ugh.
I feel like if I could find a single one like that I could personally meet that existed that didn't turn out to be like a mentally ill pedo, then I could be like, all right, like I'm cool.
No,
you know what I mean?
They want to become what they want to fuck. They can go fuck themselves. And like, these are the worst kind of fucking men. And like, like he said, relationship that women have to consider the male and the female. Like, my entire body cringed. It's disgusting. Like, it's like, women do enough for you, motherfuckers. We do enough for you, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
We don't have to do anything more for you.
Yeah, it's usually so abusive. It's one thing if maybe they're honest and upfront from the beginning and the woman wants to give it a try. I still think that she shouldn't. Ladies should not go into relationships with these men. But usually it's when they're already together and then he springs this on her. Usually after they're married, usually when she's pregnant, usually when she's just given birth. How many stories are there? of these
'Cause they're
men all of a
abusers.
sudden. Yeah.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
no, she does not have to consider both sides. She married a man. And for him to even say there is a female side, right? Like he tries to really say he's coming at this from a very logical perspective. And look, there is things he's being honest about. He isn't, at least he's not lying. He doesn't think he's really a woman. But then he kind of slips up and says, well, the partner has to consider the male and the female side. There is no female side. Even if you're calling this a sexual orientation and not a fetish, that still doesn't mean there's a female side.
And how fucking
So he's
dare
kind of
you when you're
contradicting
dealing with an
himself.
actual female human?
Yeah.
You know,
Well, that's
like
the
fuck,
thing,
you
these
don't
men
have any.
like women. They hate us. Like, I really think that like a lot of this spawns from, and I could be wrong, because I'm not a man, I don't fucking know, but I feel like a lot of this might stem from like some weird subconscious desire to control like birth, like pregnancy.
Oh, I think so. I think that's the original sin.
I think
Fucking,
so.
it's not Eve. It's
'Cause this is
Adam.
all
I
really
think,
weird.
yeah, it's fucking Adam.
Just like
This time
weird.
Eve's gonna slay Adam and save the serpent's son. The serpent's a baby. It's the serpent's pregnancy. That's the original sin, is male's jealousy of women's ability to be pregnant and the denial of our divinity.
Yeah, I feel like that it's just like some weird, like it's how it started, like some weird misguided obsession with controlling the ability to,
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
like, because it's
That's
just
what all patriarchy is based on.
like, if you think about like how, like on how many levels like women are either, if they're not outright hated, we're like mocked, because it's all very like, to me, when I see a mandrit, like I'm not amused by this, like a lot of people think it's like cute or funny, but like when men think of women, this is how I picture a woman. This is how I'm gonna move about the world as women, and I'm gonna make you an actual woman. Look at me with my frosted blue eyeshadow and arm warmers, and I am equal to you. Like, and I understand what you're going through. I mean, I've had trannies look me dead in my face and complain about their period cramps, like. For real. And if you're watching this, love you, but you don't have a uterus. And I'll die on that hill. You cannot feel cramps in an organ you do not have. Okay. And don't even try to throw phantom legs, because it's not a phantom limb. Apples and oranges here, like not bending the rules of reality for you guys. I'm gonna shut up now. Oh my God, everything.
I mean, I've hate crimed this entire episode, so.
I'm sorry, I piled in and started hate crying.
That really pissed me off, that statement. Just like, I just immediately empathized with whoever his future partner was, and I wanted to punch him in the fucking face.
Yep.
Well, he doesn't believe in monogamy because he doesn't want to be tied down, so don't worry. I mean, he won't. Don't think there's many.
I doubt there are many women in his DMs.
Yeah. Check the.
But he's so jacked. He's so jacked though.
He's 6'4" and jacked.
With his comb over side part.
Yes, that deep part.
In favor of her, and so I don't like. While I don't think say a typical heterosexual woman would necessarily want to date AGPs, there's definitely a lot of them that are down for it, even if it's not necessarily their usual, like a preference. There are benefits to it, in the sense that we're more likely to, say, have feminist beliefs, or to basically have empathy for the woman's position, because we have a brain quirk that makes us think, what is it like to be a woman? What do they go through? And so we can have a better understanding than a typical heterosexual male could. And some of us can be better partners in that way, and curtail some of the dangerous
downside. He knows.
Masculinity.
I've never felt as disrespected by the male population as I do by autogynephiliacs ever. Like I have some beef with some men, all right, but never in my life have I, as a woman, a real one, have I felt so disrespected and misunderstood as I have by all you AGPs out there. Comes from an XX having female.
When I first watched this, like, because I did watch this before, that part really set me off. Like, I made a tweet about it. I was like, that is I feel far more understood by regular heterosexual men than by men with this fetish. Because he
Yeah.
said, "Oh, we have a brain quirk that makes us think of how it is to be female." No, you have a fetish
Yeah.
that only makes you think of how it is to be a sexualized female. That's
Yep.
it. That makes you understand us so much less than a heterosexual man who actually loves us, who actually loves women and doesn't try to be them. I think that kind of man wants far more to protect them and to take care of them than this guy who just wants to be a sexualized version of women. I hated that when he said that. Like, I had watched this, I thought, okay, there's some things about him that aren't so bad, but then he said that and I'm like, fuck this guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, he is being honest with some things, but then he slips up and his actual, like, the actual truth will come out.
Yeah.
Every so often.
The AGP man can be more responsible in his partnerships with women, saying, you know what, I'm being too selfish. I'm putting my own her above my external her, right? And be more of a manager and kind of say, if I'm going to be in this marriage, I'm married, both my woman's side and my man's side are married to this other person, and this other person is priority above both of us.
Well, it depends how strong the orientation is, because if with the allo auto balance, allo means other, auto means self. Basically, if their heterosexuality is the vast majority of it is auto, then those feelings are going to matter more to them than the allo heterosexual concerns of their partner, you know? And so it's very much a very highly individual situation as to how it'll pan out. But something that's important about getting this information out there, God bless you.
Did you guys follow that? I didn't follow that.
Basically, part of why it's important.
Did anybody? I'm stupid. What did he just say there?
Well, he's admitting that it can be quite narcissistic, basically, in my
That's what it
opinion. He's
sounded
admitting
like.
that, yeah, he's saying that the person who's in a relationship with this autogynephile should understand that, like, that their auto concerns, their fetish concerns are going to be more important than the partner. I mean, he's being honest, and that's what these men do. They will prioritize that sexual orientation, to even use his terms, over their partner, which would make them pretty shitty partners.
What did he call the partner? An aloe vera?
Yes. In this terminology, so he says autosexuality is his kind of orientation toward himself, and so he's saying allosexual, ALLO, others, oriented towards others.
Like an alloy?
This is what I hate so much about this movement, is that this forcing people to redefine who they are to fit them in.
It's just normal. Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, you can't say, now you have to say cis. It's the same thing as adding cis into our, forcing cis on women just so that there can be trans women. He's forcing allosexual on us now too. So it's like, what, I'm an allosexual cisgender fucking woman? No, I'm just a fucking heterosexual woman.
Yeah, and this terminology actually comes from like the asexual movement. They say, oh, we're asexual, you're allosexual. I've heard that in the reference.
I didn't know that.
Well. Yeah. I've heard it from there as well. Yeah.
And they're in their mind, and allosexual is just a person with a normal sex drive, like, or what?
Yep.
Like, are
basically
gay
that sexually oriented,
sexual, or
yes, having a sex drive and being oriented towards others, basically.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right, arm warmers.
There's a lot of women that are in what they think are conventional heterosexual marriages, having their husbands come to them many years into marriage saying that, like, hey, they want to cross-dress or they want to transition, and this catches them off guard. And these women were not told this up front. They did not sign on for this. And so this is bad. Even in Hirschfeld's book, they published in 1910, he said that it's important to tell the potential wives before you get married. And like, this is even before women had even the most basic rights, that he was like, that is wrong. And so I think it's good for this orientation to be more known, so that auto heterosexuals can tell, so they can say, change their dress to advertise, basically broadcast, sexually signal that what they're into, and to weed out partners that are incompatible, and also to, on the first or second date, to tell them, hey, this is how my orientation works. It's, if you're not down for it, no hard feelings, I get it, but it's just how I am.
Yeah. And if you want more information, buy Phil Lilly's book. It's on Amazon.com.
Yeah, buy Auto Heterosexual, Attracted to Being the Other Sex. Soon to be out in a few months. Release date unknown. But yeah, no, this book is going to cause it's going to trigger an absolute shitstorm,
Oh yeah.
which is great for sales. So I'm not worried at all about sales because social media runs on controversy, and this.
Didn't he just say like he needed a fucking philanthropist to fund his book because he had no money or something? And now he's not at all worried about money.
He's
But
the first person in the
did I
room.
miss something?
Always.
I
because
found
you
it. I
don't
found it
have-
on Amazon. There's no cover though, but I found it on Amazon. This
How
is
much is it
Amazon
charging?
Canadian. It's 51 Canadian. For
That's a
hardcover.
lot of money
Yeah,
for a book.
paperback. Yeah.
American. That's a
But there's
lot.
not even a photo. There's not even
That's
a cover
lot
photo.
of money to charge
No,
for your
no
first-
image available.
your
Yeah, like I
first
would have
book,
thought
too.
$15.
Like he should have charged max 15. Max.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
your
there's a
your
cover.
unknown
If you click
author.
on the Kindle version, there's a cover. Kindle
Oh.
version's only $2.
Oh man, am I allowed to get the Kindle version?
Oh, it's probably because he's self-publishing. So he has
Yeah,
to like
yeah.
pay for print out the books.
If
Yeah, so
I
he's
get the
probably-
Kindle version, would you guys want to do a book review?
Yeah.
Because I'll just like
Yeah,
screen copy
let's do it. Yeah.
So we'll only have to buy one version.
There's
Crazy
his
for-
author photo.
Oh,
Really.
okay,
just
alright,
he's
alright.
so beautiful. What a beautiful dainty flower.
You know,
God.
respect for not like filtering the fuck out of his own image, right? Like a lot of them will use like the insane filters and they just like
They
Yeah.
yes, they Facetune every single one of their photos and they still look like a sack of shit. It's awesome.
We're doing podcasts like this, but you need to go out there and show up to conferences, actually take advantage of the TERF movement and say, can I come and speak to you guys about this stuff? Can I educate you on this way?
I don't know that I necessarily want to physically go hang out with them.
I'm just saying, and this is a post conversation, but just it's all about publicity. So you need to just be on the map. And so speaking with like Helen Joyce, Louise Perry, Mary Harrington, like these thoughtful, rational feminists and post-feminists, reactionary feminists are going to understand and be able to translate what you're saying into the audience that would actually benefit from this. And the TERF side of this will actually benefit from this because there's a lot of women who aren't just radical feminists there, who are trying to deal with women's sports or their own hot button topic, or just trying to get their son to not castrate himself chemically before he's ever had sex, right? Those women
Right.
are
Or
actually,
just trying to figure out their own gender issues.
yeah.
And and right now, without the scientific explanation being out there, put to the forefront, that's all we have is ideology. We have different.
Is this man claiming to be a scientist? I'm curious because he keeps dropping the word scientific in like.
Well,
like
he feels like he's filling a void. He doesn't think the organizations that are which is true in a way, that he doesn't think that the science can be relied upon by who's in charge of the science now, which is true, but not for the reason he says. So he's like working with other autists to develop the science.
Yeah, I don't like that he's using that term. Go ahead, put your own theory out there. That's completely fine. And it might help some people, even though we don't like the terms he's using. But to say it's like the science is a bit silly.
Yeah, well, I was just curious because if he might, I don't know. I'll get a link from one of you guys after for this stupid book. I can't find it because I'm slow. But he says he's saying science so much. I really am wondering if like he's going to include some science in this book, if it, like, you know, like try to back up his stuff. Like I'm curious how well researched this is, or if
He's gonna have references. He has massive references. He hasn't done his own studies or anything like that. He's going to be referring to other people's work. Yeah.
Okay. Because I'd be in because I guess, you know, I haven't heard a hypothesis of his yet, but it'd be kind of interesting.
We have wokeness and we have TERFness, and they're
Good
fighting each
reactions,
other.
yeah.
They're both based on social construction, which means they're both wrong.
Well,
in the
social
sense that-
convention is not necessarily wrong because it's functional.
Yeah, I guess I said that a bit too bluntly and crude, but to exclude that we are an ape, to exclude evolution.
To
If you do,
exclude we are innate. Is that even
You're
a
not
fucking
innate.
An ape.
Oh, okay.
ape.
I'm
Didn't
sorry.
he say
I'm
an-
deaf, guys. I need
I
to.
thought he said innate. I thought he said innate.
That's what I
like
heard.
No, an
innately.
ape. That's why he's
Where's
talking about
Sally?
evolution.
Oh,
Like we are a primate. Like,
But what about, how does this have to do with AGPs?
And TERFness do not acknowledge that males and females on average are different. They think differently. And this is a product of our evolutionary history. And we will not be able to shape people to fit the society. There's a certain limit to how much we can shape people to fit society. And so we need to figure out how to make a society that fits the human animal as it actually exists instead of how we wish it might be.
And kind of being mature in his, in his development as a species, to kind of recognize himself as what he is.
Right. You must confront yourself to understand what you actually are. And then once you know that, you can proceed from there. But it is important to understand yourself. That need for self-understanding is what drove my
research.
My research that led into it's gonna be a chunky book.
Wait, what does that mean? Like fat? Like with PH?
Yeah, like thick. Like thick.
Nice.
I think it's yeah. It's
I think get Lizzo to do the audiobook.
I mean, I'm sure as shit not gonna do it. It might as well be a woman. Yeah. Yeah, it's still not the publishing company still hasn't put it on the pages. The manuscript is complete, but so it's going to take a few months for them to put it on the pages. But I think it's going to be over 500 pages. Wow. On like on a 9x6 trim, and so yeah, and it has like 28 diagrams, tables in it.
What was your previous life? What's your background in?
Oh,
are you like a James Damore kind of guy? Like the cute James Damore?
Yeah, I know of him. His memo was mostly accurate as far as I could tell. But I was a mechanical engineer. Oh, wow. And I did not like having to wear pants and having to work with men. Sitting in a cubicle under fluorescent lights, 40 hours a week, I didn't care. It didn't seem like it mattered. It felt completely spiritually devoid of worth. And so that hurt. And in my free time, I would just hula hoop a lot. Like juggling, hand balancing, handstands with style. And
totally
that around town, right? It's very Portland, yeah. No, I did that. I got quite advanced at it. Before this gender stuff gets out there, that is mostly what I'm known around town for, is my hooping. Because it's very technically proficient.
That's awesome. Are there videos out there? Do you have a how-to manual?
I have. You could YouTube. I have a demo from a few years ago. It's pretty funny.
Awesome. I want to see it.
Yeah. So I had this job that was very masculine and that I hated. And then in my spare time, I would hoop with all my energy. And I realized after learning about autogynephilia that the reason I hooped was because that's a female thing. I had no idea. But I don't actually even do it on body like that. I do it very male-brained way, where mostly with my hands and stuff. But
the sexiest thing I've ever seen in public, sorry to interrupt you, just beyond, it was in Portland, Pioneer Square, this young woman playing a saxophone and hula hooping at the same time. It was like I couldn't believe that this was happening in public. It was like this tidal wave of erotic energy on this transcendental level. It was so powerful.
Yeah, to have the musician attractiveness on top of the physical dancing,
like this kind of evoking the spirit of Jesus or something, like primordial.
Yeah, that's conjuring the feminine spirit for sure.
No, I just got really annoyed and bored. I just did that I didn't realize I was doing it, and then and then I thought better of it, and it already happened. That's all that was.
Just funny.
Conjuring the feminine spirit.
Yeah.
He didn't even know hula hooping was such a female thing. That's how much of a female he is, that he did it, and he didn't even know women did it, even though he's a man and he's doing it. So it proves everything.
Not to mention, as an actual woman,
just once again, stereotypes and weird. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so I've pre-ordered his book. It will be delivered to my Kindle. I guess.
Okay, okay, Kindle, not the hardcover.
Yeah, no, I'm not giving this man $50 for his
fetish book.
Pretty much. Or,
by the way,
fetish gospel. Fetish dictionary.
It said 700 pages. It's 702 pages, so he's right. It was lengthy.
This man, not only is he the best everything, he's the best hula hooper, and he's gonna change. What an insufferable twat. But Okay, so it says it'll be delivered to like the full book because it doesn't drop till the 13th to my Kindle then. So as soon as I have it, I'll just send you guys screenshots of his
700 page.
700-page manifesto.
It's got to be mostly appendices, right?
We'll see.
Hopefully.
We'll
Hopefully.
see.
Gonna be a lot.
Probably gonna be
a
just
lot, yeah.
Just him visiting the glory hole or whatever. Whatever this motherfucker gets up to in his spare time. Hopefully he's been around.
All due respect to the feminine spirit, just like when you see it, you know what you're seeing.
It's the face of God. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, so basically, I hated working. I hated wearing pants and working with men, and so whenever I'd get laid off, I would, not be rushing to get a new job until I was about to run out of money, and stress forced me to.
Yeah.
But so I spent thousands of hours in my 20s hula hooping just in the park, just like just hanging out in the park. I remember this one time a truck drove by and yelled, "Get a job!" It's like that they saw me day after day, like they're driving to their job and they just see me just like shirtless hooping in the park, and they were envious for sure. But yeah, I did that, and yeah, basically I channeled my oligonophilia into hooping, and then now I'm channeling it into intellectually understanding it.
One of the projects that GenSpect is working on, I don't know if you know them, but they're kind of a non-political entity that's gender skeptical, but is just set up to provide resources for the gender distressed parents, children, adults. And one of their projects is this thing called Beyond Transition, which is just a number of just resources for people who have trans, who haven't trans, who've detransed, free counseling. But one of the things that they're toying around with to
He keeps doing it.
tune with your body, to really understand your body and the effects of that on gender dysphoria. Exercises, yogas, dancing, stuff like that. I think
it definitely helped me. Being able, it's much easier to feel gender dysphoria, I found, when I'm not exercising and being in tune with my body. It's really easy to start separating the mind from the body instead of it being an integrated thing. And so, yeah, hooping was really important for that for me. Also hand balancing. I can do both at the same time too.
On a rope?
No, just like standing on my hands on the ground and then spinning a hoop on my foot.
As all women do.
Fire leg. Yeah, fire. Yeah, I can do on fire too. Yeah. If any Portlanders listen to this have probably seen me do handstand hoop twerking before. It's a very niche trick.
It's a thing that you do. Was that what you were doing during the 2020 riots? You were out there trying to calm down Portland by hooping inside of the federal building?
I
don't incriminate yourself.
Once or twice.
Okay.
No, I went and checked it out once or twice, but I didn't. I realized I was already doing my gender research by then, and I realized that was not my lane. I was not going to make any impact in that space, and I cared about the gender thing, and my way of making impact will be in making transgenderism understood. It is not going to be through yelling slogans at some mass gathering.
Though you do have some great slogans.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm so glad that other people can notice them and mention them, because I have terrible memory for dialogue. I forget basically everything I ever said. And so it's nice to hear things I've said. I'm like, oh wow, that was actually funny. Yeah.
Well, Phil, Lily, I'm gonna link to your links in the description, but what are they at this point? Do you have a Substack, or is all your writing just on paper right
now? I have a Substack. It's Phil Lily. Last name.
Do we care? No.
Wait, what?
Not in the fucking least.
No, cut him off.
I'm
Don't let
curious.
him drop his links on your.
Yeah.
Cut him off. Be like, psych.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Good idea. Yeah, they're done.
Can see him on the dark web.
Should we discuss? Yeah.
There's so much
Debrief.
to discuss.
Hmm.
Final thoughts?
I'm a bigot against AGPs. I think I have to come to terms with that. I love the gays though.
Oh yeah, love the gays.
I don't know. I
hope so.
I don't think I'm open to hearing him anymore. Because I just feel like it's so methodical, and it's just ultimately it's abuse, it's a manipulation tactic, it's grooming tactics, and it's abuser tactics. And I think just interviewing Amy this week, it's just really, that's how they describe these men in prison. It's just so I think it's just a little raw, maybe that's why. But
Yeah.
I find him enraging personally.
The one thing that I give him in the plus column is at least he's getting away from this idea that this means you are really a woman. If maybe that message can help more men understand, okay, I'm not really a woman, I don't have a woman brain, that's great. But still, having seen this twice now, I'm still enraged by the same kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of belittling the seriousness of what this is causing. Like, okay, great, you're admitting that these men are not really women, you are not really a woman, but you know how he kind of lightly talks about, oh, those are my people, like the GameStop man back early on, he said that those are my people. Like, these are dangerous men, these are narcissistic men, they are coming into our spaces. They do not understand us better than regular old straight men. That I don't agree with that at all. And so the attempted reframing of this from a fetish to a sexual orientation, I also don't agree with that. And I don't think that's true. It's completely self-oriented. I don't think that counts as a sexual orientation. So yeah, the only thing I really can give him kudos for is, great, you're not really a woman, which is a pretty low bar. I don't hate the guy, but there's a lot in there that enrages me as well.
Yeah. I just feel like it's so calculated.
What's your overall reaction, Bunny?
And that guy's a clown. That guy is a clown. Like, to all the men out there that are struggling with this, I really urge you to think about, like, what's control, like what are you going to allow to control you and change the trajectory of your life? Do you want your entire life to revolve around a fetish? And do you think that gentleman really feels fulfilled and looks like a happy person? And to actually elaborate, have you met anybody with that mindset that you truly believe is a fulfilled, happy person? I'm not saying you have to I don't live a normal white picket fence, married to a dude, 2.5 kids life. And I'm not saying that's necessary to be happy, but I feel a mixture of rage and pity when it comes to that guy. And do you want to be that person that people pity and dislike? Do you want to like yourself? That's all. Fuck his arm warmers and creep me the fuck out.
But Bunny, I think you make a really good point. They're suggesting often that acceptance is all they need to be happy, but I don't think that that's the case. And I think you're right that, like, are these happy, evolved, emotionally, mentally well human beings, autogynephilic men? And I don't think any amount of acceptance will be enough.
No, and because it's so, what they're asking for is unreasonable. It's unreasonable to ask people to accept what they're asking people to accept. And any amount of honesty, I think, and honest self-reflection, they'd come to that conclusion. But unfortunately, when narcissism and compulsions are driving the boat, here we are.
Masha, what is your reaction to the episode?
If you want to hear my reaction, you're going to have to tune in to our live discussion.